Welcome to Grace to Endure. In this video, we're going to be talking about money and murder and how that plays a role in this Babylon system taking over the entire world and gaining control. I tried to actually divide it into two videos, but I found it almost impossible to explain one without the other because these four are actually they're so incorporated to each other. They are definitely entangled. And so I'm going to give some very practical examples of how to see that Babylon is here. I hope that I was able to show you in previous videos that the sexual immorality is rampant and turning completely global in a strange and unique way that has not been since literally the creation of the world. There has been pockets of it, but never did they have the medicines and the technologies that they do have now in order to gain control like this. And that leads to sorcery, the ability to control through medicine and therefore, of course, doctors, big thing to be watching for. Obviously, I'm not opposed to all doctors, but you have got to be awake and alert, and you can no longer. I do not believe that we as Christians should be just believing everything that we hear just because someone has been to a college and they have degrees, okay? Because we know that the warning is that this is going to be used to literally take control of the people and all the kings, all the leaders of the entire world. So this is a big deal warning that God has given us that is extremely practical. Okay, and then money. We're going to see how money is literally infused with all four of these. They make money on the sex, they're making money on the sorcery and the medication, they are making money on the murder. And we're going to go into detail about some of the examples of how this is happening right in front of our faces. In fact, I am hoping to just alert you and wake you up to seeing that there's two different views. Some Christians take a very literal view, as I do, that there's going to be a city center. I personally think it will be Jerusalem that will be controlling all the kings of the earth, and I do a video on that extensively elsewhere, so I'm not going to go into that in this video, but I personally think there's going to be a royal city with physical ability to be burnt to the ground that is going to control the whole world. So I would say that Babylon is here in all four of these things, but that royal city hasn't happened yet, at least not to our knowledge, okay? Unless the 10 are going to expose that it's here and we just didn't know it, okay? So if you are different from me and you take a more spiritual view of Babylon, and this means you need to be even, in my opinion, even more vigilant and more alert because it's here. Like all four of these things are here in an extreme like never before. And I'm hoping that these 4 videos will serve to wake you up and help you to start seeing it right in front of your eyes and hopefully pinpointing and researching some of these things that we are seeing happen right in front of our eyes, taking over the world, and just everybody just seems on board without even realizing what's going on and that control is being taken. They don't even see it. And so it's like stealth. But if you look at Babylon's past, with paganism, right back to Tower of Babel time, you will see that stealth is used quite early on in Babylon's pagan history. So that is one of the ways that this is done, is that there's confusion and there's some stealth and there's a lot of lies that goes on with Babylon. We've seen in the previous videos when we talked about sex and sorcery that Babylon tells lots of lies. In fact, they're self-deceived. They think that they can sustain everybody and that they can sustain themselves, and it's just not even true. So lies is like one of the foundations of how Babylon functions. So we have to be looking for the lies. No one ever thinks they're deceived, right? But we have to be looking and asking God and praying and saying, God, show me where I am deceived in this, in these 4 ways, And I think that it's time to just wake up, church, and put your armor on because Babylon is crowding in around us. The religion of Babylon is paganism, and it's all the gods, okay? And we see from the past that those that worship the gods have all of these wicked pagan practices, these detestable practices in them. They go together. So one of the things that Babylon has been doing throughout her history is killing of groups of people, okay? And so near the time of the end in Revelation 18:24, we read that Babylon is at it again. She's never really stopped. She's killing groups of people. She's slaughtering them. That's what a slaughter is. Now let's look at it. It says, in her, the context is Babylon, was found the blood of all those slaughtered on the earth. So the first group that we're going to talk about is those that are slaughtered, large groups of people that are murdered around the world. Let's look at one example from Babylon's past so that we can see how she works and how she does it. She helps you to be part of it so that it doesn't look like it's all her. We're going to look here in Jeremiah 32:35 and see what God has to say about the idea of killing your babies. This is something that Israel started copying the pagans and doing this as well. It was horrible enough that the pagans were doing it, but then Israel starts participating as well, and God says exactly what he thinks about it here. They have built the high places of Baal to sacrifice their sons and daughters in the fire to Moloch, something I had not commanded them. I had never entertained the thought that they do this detestable act, causing Judah to sin. So we see that God has already spoken. It's detestable, and it's a sin, and it's pagan. In Revelation 17:6, we see another group that Babylon kills, and that is Christians. I would suspect that they do not like being exposed by Christians. Of course, they will not like being exposed by the 10 or the Antichrist, but at that point, it'll be too late, and they will come in a very powerful way. Because that is the way it's going to take place, and we know that from Scripture. But the Christians might be doing something very similar and even exposing Babylon during it or as Babylon is rising, and Babylon might not take too kindly to that. Remember how I said at the beginning of the video that if I even so much as use certain words, I get completely silenced. So we can see bits and pieces of that. They do not like anyone talking about what they're doing. So let's read in Revelation 17:6. Then I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of the saints. When I saw her, I was greatly astonished. So there is something happening here that John is seeing that is surprising to him, but not just a little bit surprising. It's greatly astonishing, greatly surprising, something he did not expect. So I think we should also be thinking in those terms too, that Babylon does things that you would not expect, things that are astonishing, and we should try not to be too surprised, but also wake up and be alert to it and expose it. The third group that Revelation tells us that Babylon will kill is actually a group of only two, and that is the two witnesses. We see this in Revelation 17:6 as well, and we see that it is also greatly astonishing. So John is astonished by what he's seeing. Now, I want to point our attention back to who are these two witnesses. We see that in Revelation 11, verses 3 and then 7 and 8 is what I'm going to point us to, and it's going to show us where the two witnesses are going to be killed, and this will probably help us to get some definitions. I will grant my two witnesses authority to prophesy for 1,260 days, dressed in sackcloth. When they finish their testimony, the beast that comes up out of the abyss will make war on them, conquer them, and kill them. Their dead bodies will lie in the main street of the great city, which is figuratively called Sodom and Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified. So there's quite a few things here to unwrap, and that is the beast is said here to be the one that kills the two witnesses, but then here in Revelation 17:6 it says that Babylon kills the two witnesses. There's different ways that you could think of this. Remember how in Revelation 17, just a few verses up, we actually read that Babylon rides the beast, the scarlet beast. Okay, so then she is part of Satan's, the Antichrist's, 3-part beast system. So it could just be that the Antichrist himself kills these two witnesses inside of Babylon's city center. Okay, But you could also read it that Babylon, because she's part of the beast's system, you could just say Babylon is the one that killed the two witnesses. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Antichrist himself. It could just be part of the Antichrist beast system, if that makes sense. So I think there's two different ways that could, be understood. And then it's very specific where this takes place. It is where our Lord was crucified, which is definitely Jerusalem. This is another reason why I think that the great city and the city center for all of this to go down is Jerusalem. Keep in mind that this term, the great city, is mentioned 6 times in Revelation. So when we look at all of those, we kind of get a pretty good idea of the fact that this is certainly Babylon, and it's also Jerusalem. Okay, so the last attribute that we see that Babylon uses to gain control of the entire world is luxury. She makes the entire world rich off of her. So all the merchants of the earth are made rich by her. All the kings, rulers, and leaders as well. So by the end of time, this is what the world is going to look like. This luxury that's promised and desired by many, this is going to be the downfall of most of the entire world. So I just have to say and challenge each one of us, myself included, living in this country. I think this is a struggle for all of us. If we love luxury, if you love comfort more than Jesus, if you love comfort more than giving the gospel, if you love comfort more than Bible study, if you love your comforts and ease of life and the fun and enjoyable things you like doing, if you like that more than church and believers and fellowship with Christians, if you love that, this is a huge stumbling block of Babylon. This is going to stumble and trip most of the entire world. So I just want to read a few of those verses. I have on the screen all of them that mention this, but I'm just going to show a few of them. It says, the merchants of the earth have grown wealthy from her sensuality and excess, just having a lot. I think if we look around in America and we look at how much we have, how much stuff we have, it's a lot. This is definitely us. We struggle with this. Okay? All right, make sure we don't love these things. I'm not saying you can't have things, but you've got to not love these things, especially more than God and more than believers and more than giving the gospel and more than your church and more than your Bible and more than... Check. If you pick activities and fun stuff like that on a decently regular basis over church, something's coming out in your life, right? What you love is starting to eke out in your actions. So then let's keep reading in verse 7. As much as she glorified herself and indulged in her sensual and excessive ways. Then in verse 9, the kings of the earth who have committed sexual immorality and shared in her sensual and excessive ways will weep and mourn over her. So when she's destroyed, they will be weeping about this because the entire economy is at stake, right? When she gets exposed. And so this is important for us to realize, and I hope that we will all consider and pray about this and think about, what do we love? What is our priorities? Because it's going to be a stumbling block if luxury is what we love more than God. Okay, so now I'm going to take all 4 of these and I'm going to try to put it together for you and give you some examples, some very practical examples that we can see that's going on right under our noses. Okay, so sex, sorcery, murder, and money. How are these being used to take control of the hearts and minds of the leaders of the world and the people of the world? Let's look at some examples. Number 1, the enticing look of luxury, the American dream, the idea that you can have it all, okay? And you deserve it all. You should get it all. And if you're not getting what you want, you should fight for it. Okay, number 2, getting parents, the protectors, away from their children as long and as often as possible. Number 3, give everyone very knowledgeable, helpful, relationship connecting, addictive, fun devices in all different various forms and ways. Make this something that they are going to enjoy and that will be very helpful so that they will all want it, of people of all ages, from children to the elderly. Number 4, use these devices to promote sex outside of marriage and pornography. This is a huge part of what these devices are used for. I forget what the statistics are, but it's shockingly high. Okay, so of course these devices cost money. So they are making money when we pay for the devices. Okay, and they're addictive and there are commercials. And so the merchants of the earth are getting rich on these commercials and all the things that are being sold to people, and it's at their fingertips. It's literally a click, a few clicks of a button. A card can just pop like this and you are buying things. And so the merchants of the earth are getting rich like never before, faster than ever. Okay, so the sex trafficking is a huge problem and is increasing greatly because of pornography going out on these devices. Okay, so sex trafficking is also a form of slavery and selling in human lives, which is actually talked about in Revelation 18. Let me get the verse for you. It's verse 13. So Revelation 18, verse 13 talks about how Babylon trades in human lives. This is important to see because, of course, they are using pornography to make money because it's a money-making business. We all know that. And so they are using sex to make money. Then they, of course, on these same devices are increasing divorce and divorce rates and increasing the desire for more and more things and stuff, and the idea that you deserve the stuff, you should get the stuff, you should fight for the stuff. And if anyone's in the way of you getting the stuff, you should, make it look like you're being mistreated. Okay, you're kind of a victim because you're not getting what you want. You deserve it. Okay, look out for number 1. Now, point number 5, use drugs to keep the population down so that they are easier to control. So birth control and promoting it and making it seem like if you're not promoting it, that you're the one that's, what's your problem? Why do you even want these kids? I have heard this so many times. I get this on a constant rate. Why would you want to have a big family? Why would you want to have more kids? Children are not loved in our world these days. They are not seen as a blessing for the most part. They are seen as in the way, inconvenient, costing a lot of money, and it is not the norm for people to want to and love to have children, and they have literally been brainwashed to try to prevent and kill their own children, their own legacy, their own blessings. They are not wanting because they are turning to this life of luxury. You have to have a lot. You have to have so much. Your kids have to have everything. And that's why they think they shouldn't have very many children. They think they're so expensive because they want to give their kids everything. Okay, so then lack of contentment, for sure. Lack of gratitude. Okay, point number 6, because they're promoting sexual immorality of any and all types, of course, that means that the men are not having sex with women out of love and wanting to protect them and provide for them and care for them their whole life. They are doing it as an experience. They're doing it for an experience, and then they leave them. So they usually do not care at all if the babies are getting aborted and they're not protecting them, because they just simply don't care. They think the kids are in the way. The kids are the problem. The pregnancy is the problem. That's what we need to hide. That's what we are ashamed of, is the pregnancy, not the sexual immorality. It's very strange, backwards thinking. Okay, so then inevitably, abortion will then be happening. And so what do? They make money off of the abortions. Then once you take the babies out of the mother's womb, they cut them up and they send them to labs for testing and for the making of drugs and vaccines in order to make money on the drugs. Okay, so they're making money on the abortion and the drugs and the sex that got them there. Can you see this all interweaving? And every step of the way, there's money being made. So then, point number 8, they make very harsh laws on farmers so that there's a low quality of food, which makes the people a little bit sick, not to the point of killing them fast usually, but unless they're very excessive about it. But they slowly are becoming more and more ill by the food. In other words, what I mean by making it very difficult to be organic. It's very hard to make good quality food. There are so many restrictions and so many things that make it very difficult to be the farmers that are making the better food. Okay, so making it very hard to make high quality food, and so the demand, there's less of it. Okay, and it's expensive now, instead of being, it used to be that all the food was, organic and high quality. Now it's very little amount and it's very expensive. So then what that does is it makes people more sick, which makes it so that what? They can make money on the drugs that treat the symptoms, often not actually the root cause. And then point number 10, open labs and let a few plagues kind of come out of the labs. And so this will help to kill people in varying ways and for various reasons that plagues cause death, not just the plague themselves, but the different things that people do to try to take care of the plague also can lead to deaths as well, when they have something they don't know how to deal with because it's made in a lab. So it's not a virus that's naturally made in nature. So it's made in a lab, so then it's very confusing to doctors. It takes them longer to figure out. So some of their cures in the beginning are actually like worse for the people and for the patients. Well, the people try to figure out what they're looking at because it's unnatural. Okay, so then more people die. And then point number 11, put poisonous things into the cures and into the medicine, even poisonous substances. I mentioned this in the previous video, that if you look at the poisonous substances on the earth and then how many of them are in the drugs and the vaccines that we use, it's pretty alarming. And they always have an explanation. They're like, well, it's okay because of, and they give all these reasons why it's okay. It's not okay, guys. So I hope that this will show you that these 4 things are intertwined together, and it is part of a system that is diabolical, and it will be exposed by 10 leaders of men that will look like they are heroes for exposing all of this. But we as Christians should be taking a stand ahead of time and looking for these things because God has warned us ahead of time. And so we need to wake up and be very alert and not fall for these lies. And also, most importantly, do not idolize the 10 when they get here.